Wow, we have a good group on this chilly but extremely beautiful Sunday morning. And we continue this morning to do the countdown to Christmas, but this is our last one for this coming Saturday, 6 days away, Christmas Day. By the time we gather together next Sunday morning, it'll be the day after Christmas. By the time we gather together the Sunday after that, we'll be into the new year of 2022. And I'm going to do things a little differently this morning. We're going to take a break from the book of Romans and probably not resume the book of Romans until we get after the first of the year sometime. So that means that I'm going to begin doing a few topical lessons. And you already know as soon as I say that I am not a fan of topical lessons. Part of the reason is I don't feel adequate to prepare them. And I always somehow when I do topical lessons feel like they're a bit shallow. And yet it's the Christmas season, and so you probably can see, Bert probably has it up there by now, that we're going to talk a little bit about joy. So I'm glad you're all here this morning. I know there are people who are watching us from a distance, and we're thrilled that they're watching us from a distance. By the way, that thing that Greg Turner said about Nell not really wanting to be here but not here, if you'd change preachers, she'd come. That's all there is to it. I mean, I know the truth about this deal. Last time I heard, she said, if you keep that son-in-law of mine preaching, I'm not coming. So I just going to get that record really clear. I want to talk for a little bit about joy this morning. Anybody received any Christmas cards? Probably not as many as you did 20 years ago because times have changed. But if you read those cards, there are certain words that are frequently used in those cards, and one of those words is joy. This is a season of joy. And I'm kind of convinced that as Christians, we're supposed to be a joy-filled people. And we know the words of Jesus when he says that we are to let our light shine so that people can see our good deeds or our good works or our good acts and glorify the Father who is in heaven. But I think if we really want people to hear the good news about Jesus Christ, as we do whatever we do, it needs to be with joy. And some of you are better at that than others. Jack is really good at that. We were with our son and his family a week or so ago, going out to eat, and our son asked, "How's Jack?" And one of his statements about Jack was, he's a jolly person. The idea, he's a joy-filled person. Now, Carol might dispute that, but to all of us, he seems so joy-filled. So I have heard for years that the book of Philippians is about the subject of joy. Or maybe the theme word for the book of Philippians is the word joy. So I decided to skim the book of Philippians and pick out some of those things that seems to me essential for all of us, any of us, to possess this thing called joy. But none of them are easy. None of these things are easy. For example, I found in chapter 2, around verse 4, this statement about how we ought to consider others, and maybe even consider others above and beyond ourselves. And maybe that's the reason why we call Christmas in part, just in part, not altogether, but in part, a season of joy, because it seems like this time of the year we do begin to consider others a little bit more than we normally do. In fact, we may consider others above ourselves during this particular time of the year, and we're busy trying to find ways to show our appreciation or our love for other people. And at this time of the year, it doesn't stop there, because some people I know go out and beyond, and they even find people they don't even know their names, and they do acts of kindness toward those people. But this whole idea of considering others above myself is not the way of this world. And how many times have we noted that the distinction between the kingdom of this world and the kingdom of heaven is very, very great. And in the kingdom of the world, it's not this way. So several years ago, Susan and I were out shopping for our oldest granddaughter, but then she was very small. We were going to buy her some clothes, as we have all our grandchildren through the years. And we went into Dillard's. And we were looking at various things, and I pulled a shirt off a rack. It was more like a T-shirt type thing, but it had writing on it. And on the writing it said, "It's all about me." Now, we didn't buy that shirt. But it is exactly the statement by which this world lives. It's all about me. It's about what I want. It's about what I need. It's about what I think I deserve. It's about my right. It's about me. And I'll almost guarantee you, if you live this life all about you, it'll be very difficult for you to find this thing that we're calling joy. And the interesting thing is, would I be correct in saying that everybody wants joy? Everybody here wants joy? And Paul says, I want you to learn how to consider the needs of others above yourself. It takes a lot of effort, change in lifestyle, to develop the habit of considering others. And then I kept reading in chapter 2. And I found another statement, and you're not going to like this one for sure. It says, in everything you do it without complaining. You do it without groaning. That's the way this world does it too. Am I right? See, every time we're a little bit uncomfortable, something happens to make us uncomfortable. Something happens that we don't like. Something happens that is painful to us. We have this thing about us whereby we like to complain about it. We like to tell others about it. This is the ache I have. This is the pain I have. This is how they treated me. This is what's going on here. And that's what's going on there. And I just keep telling it and telling it and telling it. And I'm complaining and I'm groaning about it. And have you ever seen someone complain and groan with a smile on their face? Has that ever happened? It will never, ever happen. And we know for a fact as Christians, because we keep reading the Old Testament and we keep looking at the life of Moses, and those people, would you consider those people blessed? Those people got to leave Egypt. Would you consider them blessed? I mean, think about a life of waking up every morning and going out under the whip of an Egyptian taskmaster and getting straw and mud and mixing them together and making bricks and working all those days. If you didn't work fast enough, you heard the crack of the whip or you felt the crack of the whip. And it's day after day after day, and it's endless, and it seems like it will never end, and all of a sudden God shows up and sets them free. Do you think those people were blessed? And yet, as they're making their way out of Egypt, every time they get a bit thirsty, every time they get a bit uncomfortable with food or whatever it is, they grumble and they complain. And God is so disgusted when blessed people grumble and complain. And there's no joy in telling you about all my aches and my pains and my difficulties and whatever. It does not make me joyful. And guess what it does to everyone else? They don't want to hear it. I want to be very careful with that statement, because once in a while, for your emotional health, you need a safe person, and you need someone very close who can be a confidant, whom you can tell them what's going on in your life so that you get emotionally refreshed. But that's not what I'm talking about this morning. I'm talking about the habit that I sometimes develop where you walk through this life and every little thing you start complaining and whining. And just remember this: you can't smile and complain at the same time. I found a third. You go over to chapter 4. And it makes this statement about being gentle. In everything you do it with gentleness. Do you think that one's contrary to the way the world thinks? You see, somehow in this world we have this idea that if I can be stout, and if I can be strong, and if I can be demanding, if I can get right down and tell you how it is, then I'll get something done. And every one of us has seen it, and maybe we have done it. Have you ever seen someone maybe in a customer service line at something like Walmart? So they're returning something, they've had an issue or whatever, and the person behind the counter is trying to work through it and trying to deal with it and asking these questions, and they're getting more and more upset, and finally they start being so harsh, and they're being so hard, and they're so rude, and they're so demanding because this little person behind the counter can't get it all done. Have you ever seen something like that? And when they were being so harsh and so rude, were they smiling? Were they exhibiting joy? Did they have joy? And there is an amazing strength that comes with gentleness. And there is an amazing power to gentle people to smile in the most difficult of circumstances and try to persuade people in a different way. And I have witnessed it over and over again, how people respond differently. I've mentioned this person in not the too far distant past. I'm kind of amazed at Ronald Reagan and what he was able to accomplish as president. He may have accomplished more in his tenure than anyone has accomplished, except maybe someone like Abraham Lincoln. But if you watch how he did it, it seemed to be, in even difficult circumstances, with joy and with a smile. And so you can shoot him, and he's close to death in an attempted assassination, and they're hauling him away into surgery, and he will pop open his eyes with a smile and say, "I hope this surgeon is Republican and not Democrat." That's how he operates. And was he loved? Yes. Even his enemies liked him because he had that kind of spirit about him. And then right behind this gentleness statement is a statement that everybody here recognizes in verse 6 of Philippians chapter 4. It says, don't worry about stuff. Don't be anxious. Now, we all do that, I know. But I want you to think about worry and anxiety and getting anxious about things. The last time you were really worried and concerned about something, were you smiling? And the answer is no. We can't worry and be anxious and be joyful at the same time. They are mutually exclusive. They don't fit together. They don't mix. And so Paul says, here's your remedy. In everything, tell it to God. And the part about that I've always missed is this word, everything. In all things. That's the part I've never focused on very much until this week. In every single thing, whether it's little bitty or whether it's great big or whether it's in between, you keep going to God with it. And you keep presenting it to Him and say, I can't do it by myself. I have to have help, please. In everything. I want to ask you something. Have you ever known a person who has lived the majority of their life, no one does this perfectly, but lived the majority of their life in a way where they seem to put others first all the time. And where they are a person who seldom ever complains. And they are a person who is gentle. And they are a person who gives it over to God, whatever it is, in everything, over and over again. Have you ever known anyone like that? And if you have, the next question is, were they people who were joyful? Now, this may not be appropriate for me to say, but I've lived with someone like that for 50 years. I know what you're thinking. How come it didn't rub off? I understand that. But I have lived with someone who has consistently put others ahead of herself over and over and over again. And sometimes I even get aggravated because it feels like she's being abused and misused. And about this complaining thing, there are aches and pains and difficulties about which I have never known, seldom know. And about this gentleness thing, doesn't know how to do it any other way except through gentleness. Unless I provoke her completely, but that's not all that, well, you know how that works in a marriage, okay? But gentle. And I've never known anyone who takes everything to God immediately. I mean, she can lose her keys or she can, whatever it is, and she's begging God, and they show up. I mean, this happens. It's just amazing. And so our grandsons, when they're with her around Cordell, and we haven't lived in Cordell full time very long, say, Gran, you need to run for mayor because everybody knows you and everybody likes you and all this kind of stuff. They've never one time told me I ought to run for mayor. Not one single time. There's just something that's different about all this. But we are to be that kind of people. If we're not that kind of people, why would anyone want to hear us tell them the good news story of Jesus Christ? And that's what the book of Romans has been all about, telling people the good news story of Jesus Christ so that they want to hear. But if I'm grumbling all the time, they don't want to hear it from me. And if I'm rude and crude and harsh and hard, they don't want to hear it from me. And if I'm worried all the time, I can do that how I'm living right now. And if I'm selfish over and over again, and it's me first attitude, why would anyone want to listen to me talk about Jesus if that's what I do? And I've been really trying lately to learn how to smile and to learn how to be different like that. Hopefully the Lord will give me enough time that I might adjust myself a bit more. Before we take communion, I'm going to tell you one other thing. Everything I've said describes the person named Jesus Christ. Everything I've said describes Jesus perfectly. Jesus humbled himself and considered us certainly more than he considered himself. He died for us. Literally, cruelly died for us. Have you ever read about Jesus complaining anywhere in the Scriptures? He didn't do that kind of thing. He had a lot of reason to do it. He didn't do it. Was he gentle? Oh, yes. And did he take everything to his Father? Why do you think he would tell his apostles to wait here and stay here? And he would go off and spend the entire night, some nights, talking to his Father about what was going on. Have anybody watched these films called The Chosen? I would recommend everyone to get a hold of these, and you can get them, they're free. The Chosen are free. It gives you a picture of Jesus that maybe you've not seen before. And the picture you get is that he's real. He's authentic. And he's smiling. And he's joking with people. He's pictured as a person of absolute joy. So as you take the communion this morning, the Lord's Supper this morning, could it be possible that we take it with joy? Oh, I know we can't think about his death and be very joyful about it, but can you think about his coming to this earth to set us free? Can you think about his example? And can you think about how he purchased us to be like him as we take those emblems? That we might be a people to whom other people will listen when it comes to his story. I want to wish all of you a wonderful Christmas, wonderful holiday. Hope you're extremely blessed. Last week when I left the auditorium, I was back at the back, and Catherine's mother was there, and I asked Stephanie, I said, Stephanie, tell me the job you're doing now. And she said, I work at Homeland Grocery in Clinton. And she said, I love my job. She said, it's a wonderful job. And I think the conversation went something like this. She said, I was talking to one of my coworkers, and they were complaining, and they were struggling with the job. And I told them, look, you have to get up every morning and choose joy. You have to choose to be happy. You need to choose to look at this a different way. And I thought, wow, that's kind of how we all need to be doing it. Do you know that Satan wants you to frown? And he wants you to be rude and crude. And he wants you to complain all the time. And he never wants you to take anything to God. And he wants you to put yourself first in every situation. Because if you'll keep doing that, oh, you may come and take communion, you may come and sing some songs, but if you can keep doing that, you'll never, ever, ever cause anyone to want to become a part of his kingdom. And so I'm asking you this week to be who we've been called to be, a joy-filled people. And you have to choose it. You have to be determined. And that's what I ask for all of you.